Hey, this is Mr. Dressy with the podcast Real Psychic. And we have a guest today. Her name is Courtney. Courtney, would you like to say hello?
Hi, everyone.
That was epic,
I'm
man,
so
because
excited to be here.
when you said that this podcast, we're all psychic, everything gets weird, you went, thank you, I'm so excited. You'll hear it in the audio. It was really trippy. This is the podcast, so in reference to the podcast.
If you see my love it, my guides, you'll notice.
They might have done
like
that.
if anybody is watching this, you'll notice that the lights,
guides,
like things in technology, will start to go crazy.
Yes, listeners, this is a video podcast on Spotify and YouTube, and we are getting way, way far away from the beginning of the podcast somehow. We're rolling it back. Courtney, do you think we're all psychic?
Yes. I think everyone is a psychic or has psychic abilities.
I do too. And how did you get to that answer?
So, let's start at the beginning. I realized that I was a little different around the age of like 3 or 4 years old.
Wow.
Because I was talking with my deceased grandfather. And obviously I was not like consciously aware or knew what was truly going on, but I was hanging out with him for a very long time. And it wasn't until maybe when I was like 13 years old is when I was consciously aware of all of the things going on. Oh. Like one night I was with a group of friends and we randomly found these group of guys, older guys, and we were just hanging out. And one guy, he's like, I read palms. And out of nowhere, I was like, so do I. I've never read a palm in my life.
You just said that.
I was like, so do I. And I picked up I picked his palm up and I read it. I had like this, everything, all of these messages and everything started to come through. I'm like, okay, I
am. What compelled you to do that? Were you just kind of sassy and going with it and then it worked? Or
there was just something deep inside of me that was like, you can too. Like, what do you mean? You can too.
And you just like,
and so I just did it and I just did it. And from that point on, like, obviously all of like the skills were honed and I was figuring things out. And like, when I first started, I couldn't give a reading or receive a message without doing this.
This is like you're asking or rubbing. Give me the answer. Give me the answer.
It was like energy. Like I needed to like,
kinetic
I'm getting like the friction. I'm getting like the frequency and I would have to do that. And then messages and symbols started to come.
Listeners, if you're not watching, what she's doing is she's kind of putting her thumb against and tapping and rubbing her fingers with her thumbs. Like, how would you explain that?
Kind of like the symbol for money. Like,
yeah, give me
money.
Some money. Gimme.
Yeah.
Here comes the money. Here comes the money. Yeah, like that. Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, that's really cool. I like that. So I'd like to touch into that for a minute because on this podcast, we talk about, if you just practice, you get it. You just have to take a lot of practice. And you had said, just a minute ago, like the way you said it was really well. You said you put some time, you put it like you put effort into it or something like that. Once you figure out, like that is something I would love to impress on listeners and watchers. It does take practice. Like, what kind of practices did you do when you were experiencing everything?
Yes. So I did a lot of like trial and error, and I put myself in situations to really feel and like really understand. Because at the beginning, like I received all of these symbols and like messages, and in the beginning, you have no clue. Like there's no, blueprint, right? Like there's there's nothing that you could.
You don't know anybody to talk to. It's like
you're alone on an island, and it's like, and that's you can either go to the direction, which is why I feel everybody is a psychic, is you could either go into the direction where you deny these gifts because out of fear of being crazy or perceived as crazy or gaslit into
you think you
thinking
are. I thought I was for a long time, I probably crazy,
same.
But, in a good way.
Same.
But yeah,
exactly.
I really did. I mean, the things that come into your head when you don't know what it is and you're having intuitive experiences or psychic experiences, it is because you don't know who to talk to about it. You just you're like, did I see that? Do I know this? What the heck is happening? I'm crazy. It's the only explanation because I can't be psychic,
Exactly. And part of that, like the biggest thing, a lot of my background is in self-love and really accepting and loving yourself. And it wasn't until I fully accepted and loved myself, the good, the bad, and the ugly, is when these abilities truly like took form. Right. But I would sit there and I would just I would assign certain symbols, with my spirit team. I'd sit them down and I would say, okay, this is for this is for that. And I would just really just practice and practice and practice. And then over time, all of my abilities, like I said, it started from, I could read your palm.
And what was that feeling? I'm really curious as to what did it pop out of your mouth like that? And you don't know why?
Yeah.
It was like your time. It was your time to do your thing.
Exactly. And it truly felt like a channeling experience of I didn't say that, right? That wasn't, me consciously. I wasn't I could do that. Something deep inside of me was yes, you can.
Reincarnated mystic. Reincarnated.
Exactly. Exactly.
I don't know how many.
But no.
I have met so many
Go
people
ahead.
Podcasts that I feel like have all been oracles, in ancient Greece. I feel like that energy from you and a lot of people on the podcast, I feel like, oracles for a long time in that era and all through Asia in their ancient history. There's a lot of, prophet type people who come along. And you do remind me of that. It's interesting. But
I love that. I believe it.
Where did you have such a positive attitude? And I'm like, we're in America because you grew up with that attitude.
Oh, you're gonna laugh.
Okay,
you're going to laugh. But I was born and raised in Las Vegas, Nevada.
No way. Oh, you're a national show girl.
Oh yeah. I was an actress. I lived in Los Angeles. I was a dancer. I was a choreographer, show producer. I lived in Mexico. I lived in the Bahamas. I was a sailing instructor.
So of course, when you had to read that poem, someone was saying, "Time to do it, girl," I guess. But what?
Yeah.
How did you transition from that lifestyle into being a reader? Are you still kind of doing both?
Well, the transition started. I have always just been the type of person who wants to live and experience absolutely everything. And I'm not.
Wow.
I know. Well, I have a lot of Sagittarius in my chart.
Okay.
I'm a Cancer rising, Pisces sun, Aquarius moon, but I have a Sagittarius Mars.
I'm a Cancer rising too. That's probably why we're like.
Love it. I love it. But no, I really wanted to live. And then I just found I traveled a lot and I just found myself, wanting to get into more of teaching and into the healing. And I find even when I was an actress or a show producer, my biggest thing was I wanted to help people feel. And,
theater does that empathy. I mean, I think the greatest actors are empaths.
Exactly.
Using it actively and pushing it into the film and stuff and into the other.
Exactly. So I felt like I might not be able to be on a stage or in front of a camera, but I could be in front of my camera and I
Right.
could impact and help a lot of people. So
Yeah.
I got into like, I'm also that's going to be the theme. I'm also
Sounds like me.
a clinical hypnotherapist and NLP. So I did like a lot of schooling and to
Oh,
know your brain, your mind, your subconscious mind, I'm obsessed with. So I just got into that. And then I've been giving, readings and stuff for like friends and family. But I truly was like, get out of like the mystical wardrobe. Like, you're fine. You're not going to be burned at the stake. Not this time. And
oh, sorry, that just took me a minute to like. That's hilarious.
And then I just went forward and I've had my practice and my business for like 8 years, but I've been honing my skills for
Yes.
over 20 years.
Yes.
So
I
yeah.
advise anyone getting into study as much as you work, if not more.
Mm-hmm.
You probably will love
Mm-hmm.
it. I mean, if you love the work, you'll have so much fun studying your tools or whatever you want to. That's, it's
I'm
really cool,
obsessed.
esoteric. I am too, and I have been forever. It feels like, and it's interesting. I've been working professionally as a reader for about 16 years now. And
Nice.
but before that, of course, there's a good 15 years of learning and
Mm-hmm.
believing, like accepting is more like it, accepting it. And then what do I
Absolutely.
do with it? And so I also have other interests like you, and and I've done all this stuff. I think I'm a professional hobbyist, because I love doing all kinds of stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
in 2018, I was really called back into this work from ghostwriting and out of the genre
Fun.
fiction ghostwriter. Yeah, I would write like really like horror books and science fiction novels, and I had so much fun
Cool.
doing it. But I started getting really sick and unhealthy physically, and
Mm.
burning out, and I just got called back into this work. So I was going to ask you, like,
Mm-hmm.
did you have a moment other than like, did you have a time when you were like, I have to do this, like this is what I'm meant to do right now? Did you have that?
Mm-hmm.
And other than the I can read your palm moment, like after that, did you
Oh,
have,
yeah.
you were just like, I'm
Um,
meant to do this? Like, did you have a
you
call?
know,
I'm kind of wondering if you did. I'm just wanting to know.
I feel like I did have a calling, but I'm trying to see if there was like a specific moment. And I'm being brought back to a time when I was a choreographer and show producer, and I was watching two of my dancers, and there's this moment where they got it. They completely got exactly what I wanted to express, and they did it. And I had that moment of oh, like that connection.
Yeah.
And I have that moment of yes, like you get it, and connection every single day I do a reading.
Uh,
Every single day I'm connecting with a client. And to me, that feels like that's like, before that was my calling in that, time of my life.
right.
And this is my calling in this time of my life of where, I am creating that impact, but I'm also guiding and helping a lot of folks to get to that space of, connection and peace and
Uh,
just alignment with their lives. So I think I can't necessarily pinpoint as an exact moment in this where I felt called, but I think like a plethora of experiences kind of add up to that.
rolling down the hill. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love
Yeah.
that. That's so cool. That's kind of how it was for me. There was never any moment where I was like, got to do it. A lot of people say there is hard for them. Like one guy was on the podcast and he said he was at work. I think he was a doctor, and he was
Mm.
compelled to go into like a storage closet, and And he just did like a utility closet and heard this voice saying, "You are no longer a whatever you are. Now you are going to become a spiritual healer." It was like this commanding voice, and he's like, "Okay." It was just like out of character for him for this to happen. He said,
"Yeah."
And he started doing that. So, but I never had any moments.
You know what's actually really funny?
What?
I'm a psychic who enjoys getting
getting readings.
I love it. And so a long time ago, I want to say maybe like 15-ish years ago, I got a reading. I went to a psychic who I've never gone to. And she said, at that time, I wanted to be an actress, right? And so she was like, "No, you're going to be a healer. You're going to be in the healing industry and like health industry." And she said all of this stuff, and immediately I was like, "Bullshit." I'm like, "No, that's not right. That's not right." And then, of course, like a few years later,
you had a little bit of something, interest or anything, nothing. You were just like,
in my mind, I was so hell bent on being an actress and like succeeding as an actress. I didn't want to hear it. But like looking back, everything that she said was absolute like accurate. I got education as a holistic health coach. Yeah. And I'm like, 10 years ago, I laughed. I'm like, yeah, right. Absolutely not. But then here I am. And I started in health, got into healing. And she did mention that because she knew I was a psychic. I mean, we all know. and she was like, yeah, and you are going to use your abilities. Like that is going to be a thing. And at the time, it wasn't a calling, right?
Right.
At that time, entertainment, that was my life. So I was like,
yeah.
Isn't that weird?
That is, I never had, I really didn't start getting readings until I was working in the field because I still didn't believe it. I was working. And even when I was working in the field, I still wasn't sure. But I always loved, anyone who would give me a reading, but I never got any. I mean, I knew a psychic in Phoenix and I finally got her to give me a reading one time and it was really good. She did cards for me one time at Coachella, but you can imagine I don't remember that. But but no psychics ever said I was intuitive or that I had any kind of abilities. And I would ask them,
really,
or people if I was getting like, do you feel like, am I crazy? Am I schizophrenic, or am I having like spiritual experiences? And they all would be like, you're schizophrenic.
Stop. Are you serious?
And I was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and that's why I was asking them. But I don't take antibiotics anymore. But at the time, it really separated the psychic from the delusions. And ever since it's separated them, I can separate them without the antipsychotic now. But
wow, interesting.
I guess maybe, and it was a different world then. Like when I was first finding my terminology in like the early 2000s, spirit guide, empath, telepath, what's words, clairs, those things explain so much. And listeners and watchers, if you don't know what the clairs are, it's like clairsentience is like touching something and knowing psychically, and stuff like the clairaudience is clear hearing. You can hear psychic things. So if you're just new to this and you don't know what we're talking about by the clairs, but I didn't like when I was reading and finding terminology for my experiences on the internet. That was the first time I had anything explain my experiences. The internet. Anywhere I lived, I lived in Alabama, and there just wasn't up there mostly. And then when I lived in Phoenix, there were some metaphysical things, but you couldn't find much about psychic stuff, even on the internet then. And if I went anywhere to like try to meet psychics or meet intuitive people, they were snobs. They're not anymore.
Right.
They're not anymore. Everyone who is a professional in the field who comes on this podcast will say yes to the question, who's field. Now, some people who aren't working in the field might be like, no, I don't know. No, I don't know.
Well, yeah. But I think like I think we all are psychic. And for those, who come on this podcast and they agree, I think I have a different perspective than most because I've studied a lot when it comes to your subconscious mind and your thoughts and like conditioning and programming. So I believe that, that's why there are so many children who have these abilities, and those children either turn out to be you or I because they nurture those abilities. It doesn't matter like on the timeline, but then there's children who those abilities are not nurtured. Those abilities are shamed. They are programmed out of them. There's like this, society, like we just mentioned, you're crazy. Like, oh, you could talk with dead people. What is this? Like Sixth Sense? Like, oh, I see dead people. Like, creating, and creating like all of this stuff. And so as a child, your subconscious mind is so impressionable. You're a sponge from age 0 to 7.
Yeah.
So if in that time frame, if you were told that what you are seeing or what you are experiencing or feeling is wrong, then that's going to be programmed into your brain to not nurture it or explore it because it's wrong. And it's not okay.
Even if children have parents who are supportive of their intuition and talking about it, they can go to school and then hear the exact opposite. And like, who do I believe? And that's
exactly, Exactly. And that's with the society programming and conditioning, and also with our media. You always see like before, it's slowly getting better, but you always see like psychics are, like the snake oil salesmen, like they're thieves, they're, wacky and right.
But everyone thinks there's a lot of frauds, but there are like 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 on the whole planet who actually have intuition and psychic ability. Now, some people practice their asses off to get there,
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, of course there's frauds, right? There's frauds in every single line of work.
Fraud is the second oldest profession. The first is actually having.
Okay. Yes, exactly. But yeah, like I really do feel like everybody has these abilities. It's just really nurturing and notice how I don't call them gifts, because I don't think that they're gifts. I think that they're there, like they are your ability, right? Some. Exactly. And some, I mean, you can, like, I'm not going to judge you if you view it as a gift, but it's just like,
I agree with you. I'm not going to judge people either. I personally think it's our innate ability. We just have this ability as part of us. It's just been, we don't talk about it anymore. That's why we need to talk.
Absolutely.
It makes your life better, listeners and watchers. For me, my life's been better the more I've dove into my spiritual side and the gifts, the abilities, all the psychic stuff I learned about myself. I'm very alone, but it's not, because I had to cut out a lot. One of my life lessons is to cut out toxic people in my life and quit being a doormat, and I'm not sure how to do that. Some ways I've been doing it are a little more aggressive than I should be. And some ways I'm doing it are, I feel like, the right way to do it, politely explain my position and without cussing and freaking out. Because sometimes when I'm pushed and I'll or I'll feel pressured or something.
Right.
And I tend to be, I'm pretty forgiving with people as long as they will apologize if they do something like that to me. But I swear in my life, whenever I mess up, if I mess up once, it's over with every friend, every husband or boyfriend, really. It was just like, that was my experience, and just but I was just saying, listeners and watchers, right before we started the podcast, I was just saying to Courtney, because we talked for a little bit and I didn't even want to start the podcast because I think we just were talking so candidly. And I really want to ask you, because I'm really curious, what's an example of your reading? Like a typical, I know they're different for everybody, but like, what would if you were to be giving a reading, how would that normally play out for you? I've never asked anyone that on the podcast, and I just want to ask you that for some reason.
So it, like you mentioned, every single reading is different, but I've noticed, like when I do readings on Everclear, when I'm on
our
that
sponsor,
yes, your sponsor, love Everclear. Whenever I do readings on that, it's just like a completely different vibe, and it feels like so fast.
Yes.
And like in it, and I can connect. And it's also like, not to toot my own horn, but toot, like I can immediately just zone in and get all of the messages like right away. So it's like that
That's great. So we had an interruption and we are back. Technical difficulties.
Yes.
Caster people.
I'm telling you, my guides like to, mess with technology. So that was probably that. Okay. So when I'm doing like a shorter experience, it seems like more like to the point, very, but also very, I function from a loving.
You do. That's why I wanted to ask what your readings are like, because I want one. You're getting a call from me.
Love it. But I do. I function from a very loving and supportive space. And I'm also like functioning from like, I'm good with weird. I'm good with whatever. Like you can't really throw anything at me that I'll be like, what? Like I'm all about it. Like, give it to me. For my longer like readings and like sessions, a lot of those turn into, because again, my background, I'm a self-love alchemist and transformational psychic and guide. So I like to incorporate a lot of like healing and teaching and guiding moments, as opposed to like on Everclear, it's very quick to the point. Like,
yes,
let's get you the guidance that you need right away. But for like my longer sessions, I enjoy just to have like a journey and like a flow. And I am also a medium. So I really, channel the loved ones and receive those messages and allow, my clients to be held and supported in ways that they're not normally held and supported.
Yes.
So I would say like the longer in the sessions where I'm allowed to, be a medium and guide and make it like a well-rounded session. It's always the vibe of love. But that's my ideal of being able to really like, it's funny because the guides are saying like, it's a slow burn. It's, it's delicious. And like,
it is delicious.
That's exactly
it. Really good, but slow burn. That's delicious.
Mm-hmm.
Hot mouth, but
caliente.
Caliente. You are just so much fun, Courtney. Where can the listeners find you? Of course, she's on Everclear. And what is your name on Everclear? Courtney Marie?
On Everclear, Wilde. Courtney Marie Wilde. Yes. You could find me there, and you could find my other services. I'll give you the thing. It's Courtney Marie .Kartra, so KARTRA.com/page/wild with an E method. So that is my company, Wilde Method LLC.
Yeah, I love it.
Total mouthful. Oh my goodness. So hopefully we'll have some links where you can click on it.
Yes,
but the Wilde Method is my it is my baby. It is the number one method to learning how to love yourself.
What is your Wilde method? Give us a little taste of what the Wilde.
Okay.
A little taste. I know it's a lie. Like I had a feeling it's a lie. Just little sample.
Yeah. A big sample or a little sample of like the Wilde method is really learning how to connect the dots between your mind, body, and spirit, and getting you to a place of truly loving and accepting and feeling worthy of yourself, and building that solid foundation of self-love so you can, be the active, conscious creator of your reality. So it's just, it's great. So it's taking all of that, and I like co-created this with, my spirit team. So there's a lot of like science, there's a lot of woo-woo, there's a lot of fun. Part of it.
I know there's fun. I know there's
tons of fun. My biggest thing, like what I teach is sacred laughter, and sacred rage. You have to have both. But with sacred laughter, like, especially when I'm connecting with guides, I have to be laughing.
They crack me up. My guides,
they're the best.
They all crack me up. Yeah. The guides.
And you know why they do that? Do you know why they do that?
I just thought they're funny.
Well, that too, but to keep the connection. So when you are like having to give like some heavy guidance or like
that
messages,
does happen.
Yes. And my guides will always crack a joke. Mm-hmm. They will always crack a joke. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you can continue the connection.
Yeah. Sometimes before it's heavy and then it gets heavy and then you can slip back out into like the regular, the morning.
Exactly.
And it's all in this solid moment of intensity. And they pull you right through it and right along. You're right. They do.
Exactly. Yep. And they could hold the connection. So I'm huge on like, there's never a moment in any, that's to add, there's never a moment in any, reading or session with me where we will not laugh at least once.
That's big. I'm definitely calling you at least once.
Please do. We'll have so much fun.
Yes, we will. And speaking of calling Courtney on Everclear, Everclear is our sponsor, everclear.com. It's an advice app and website where you can get advice from psychics and empaths so you can get the clarity you need to create the life you deserve. You deserve it. And I am now Lisa Russick officially, listeners and watchers. If you're a regular, I've been Lisa P on Everclear forever, and they changed it to Lisa Russick. So I'm an official real name on there now. And it's easier to find because look at my last name. You want to find me if you're looking. And lastly, Courtney, I would love to ask for some advice on for readers in this case. Usually I like to ask questions for people who are newer to the energy work. But I feel like asking, like, if you have any advice for people who are working in the field and just starting out, let's say, and how do they keep that optimism? You just have this optimism. I don't know how long you've been doing it. You did say forever. So you've got like, I've always kept the optimism about readings too, even that can get stuff can get really hard. But how do you do that? How do you keep that when you first start and it's starting, some people get burned out fast. Some people can't handle they don't take the advice. What is it for you that keeps that optimism in you while you've been doing it so long?
I think the biggest thing is to always remind yourself of two things. One, that this is a practice. And with practice, it's never going to be perfect. And it's never going, there's no such thing as like the perfect reader, the perfect reading, the perfect, client. And it's all a practice. And just to really remind yourself that this is a practice and to kind of like, part of our job is to detach and to not, judge what we're receiving.
Definitely.
So why would you then judge what you as the reader are receiving, like for yourself, right? So just kind of remind yourself it is a practice. And then the other one is, I think readers tend to, and just like spiritual advisors tend to forget or have moments where they forget that they are human. And human experiences happen. Yeah. And we need to just kind of like really ground yourself. I feel like I can be so optimistic and loving and caring because I am not living like I have like 1 foot in the spirit realm and 1 foot in reality.
I feel like that's how I live too.
Exactly. You have to be very grounded in order to, just move through this and just remind yourself, like, I'm a human and I'm here to, give the messages that I'm, being called to give. And I'm here to help and guide and support. And it's okay if I mess up. It's okay if like,
it is okay.
I can't I can't get the reading, or I can't connect, or I said this and it was the exact opposite. That happens.
It does happen.
Right?
It does happen.
That's
sometimes
life.
One of my guides will even like straight up lie to me. I tell people, but she always has a reason. It's a good reason in the end.
Absolutely.
But I don't know. I'm not sure. Sometimes I'll say to people, she's saying something so outlandish, I know she's lying. But I'm going to tell you anyway. There's a reason.
Absolutely. And that's and that is our jobs to really interpret it and understand it and not be so above it. Right. Because when we're above it and we're no longer grounded and in it, that's when we can get burnt out. That's when we can have all of these expectations.
That's very good point.
Right.
Yeah. Keeping the optimism. And, I just had this conversation with my friend, Marissa. She's a returning guest. She's also my friend. I was just talking to her, I think yesterday, and something she said just really, it was something we were talking about, is how we both are always looking for this perfect love. And it's in our charts too, that we're looking for. We're here to find what real love is, real, genuine, give and take, healthy relationships. If you want to look at charts, you see it in the astrology, especially for her though. But I've always felt that way. And I've been through horrible relationship situations after. Some were good, but they always ended, so I always feel like I keep an optimism about it though. And she has the same kind of innocent optimism too. And I think it's that faith that there is true love. It doesn't have to be romantic, but there is unconditional true love in the world. And of course, we always talk about romantic, but in general, I feel like that is, what is the important thing, in a way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, it keeps us feeling like our vitality is alive if we believe that love is, this love is. And it's there, it's real.
It's so real. And the reason why humans are on this plane is to feel and to experience and to learn and to grow. And if we take all of that out of the equation, of course, we're going to be
very bored and probably
sad
depressed.
And not, ourselves. So if you have that outlook of I'm supposed to learn about love, I'm supposed to uncover what love or true love, romance, what it all means. I'm supposed to. If you function from that optimism, from that outlook, absolutely, that's going to be, what's going on in your life.
Your perspective and your outlook can just, they're for me, your perspective, my perspective, the way I perceive things, exactly. My perspective. I'm gonna say it again. Perspective. I'm naming the podcast Perspective. Just kidding. But if I see it, although I was a negative Nancy growing up, I was just man. But then when I realized I really did have control over changing the way I perceive things and think about things, and I did it. It took a lot. I'm still doing it. It takes a long time.
Absolutely.
It wasn't programming from anyone in particular. It was just a distortion. I always had kind of the one foot in the spirit world and the one foot on earth. And it's kind of how do you explain that to anyone when you're in 7th grade? How do you explain it to yourself? So I just love that. And I do think you have that optimism about love in the world too,
for sure.
There's just love everywhere if you look for it, and it's everywhere. There's a lot of fear and insecurities around love, and it shouldn't be that way. And I don't mean just romantic love, but friendship love, family love, self-love, the most important one. Thank you. And with that was what were you about to say? What were you about to say? I was going to say ending.
I suffered from depression and anxiety and panic and paranoia for 15 years. And it wasn't until I truly was like getting into self-love and accepting myself and building that is where I became on the other side of all of that.
Relate to that too. And I feel like a lot of our listeners will too. And listeners and watchers, I do want you to know that Courtney is on Everclear. Call her. And and her website. And lastly, I would like to say thank you, Courtney, for being on the podcast. And
thank you.
We'll talk more.
Yes.
Listeners and watchers, I love you. And you love the listeners and watchers, Courtney.
I love them. I love them so much.
We've been talking about love for she does love you so much. I love you so much too.
Of course. There's a lot of love. Of course. So much love. All you need is love. Da, 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 da.
Thank you so much. And listeners and watchers, I love you. She loves you. And everybody have a great time wherever you may be. And peace out. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.